Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Willies. This is a progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, progressive, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. We are an independent media outlet that, unlike mainstream media beholden to corporations, we only owe allegiance to you. Remember, you can also send me a tweet at EGBERTOWILLIES. That is at Egberto Willies. Let us engage. It is Politics Done Right. Well, folks, welcome to one more edition of Politics Done Right. I'm Egberto Willies, your host. Thank you so kindly for being a part of the show. We are going to have a great show for you today. We're actually going to start right away with a video that I did with WBAI in New York as soon as we found out that this invasion, this attack on Iran occurred. I just want to play this, and after that, I have another video. I'm going to try to cut it short, of course, because it went kind of extended, that I did last night with some of you, where I said, here's the reason I voted for Jasmine Crockett, with the expectation that folks take a good listen to the first part of it and understand what I'm talking about. But anyway, here's the piece that we did on WBAI in New York, right? Well, check it out. They called me at 5 o'clock in the morning. Hey, we need you on in 10 minutes because the invasion occurred. Here we go. So far, we've had a very weak Congress that has allowed Donald Trump to create a laissez-faire form of international policy that is actually going to put all Americans in danger. This is not a joke. This is not 1930s when the rest of the world doesn't have recourses. And the thing about it is, while we may get a short-term victory in Iran is a big country, and two armadas are not going to take out Iran. The president went on TV, and the president started to act like the savior of Iran. And he goes out and he says, people of Iran, stay at home. Bombs are going to be falling all over the place. And it's time for you to take your country back. Okay, let's assume that Iran want to say that. Bombs are falling. Now take back your country. When, Mr. President?
So the incoherence, and that's such a great point. And I would say that it's also important because I follow your program closely, and you have been keeping track of the narrative for a long time. And it is important to reprise the history of the United States with Iran, particularly for listeners who may not have been on the planet. And so the history of how the United States had this further notice war on terrorism and the response of 9/11, the further notice wars that went on for an entire generation.
Yes.
And were a bipartisan project. And President Obama, as much as by contrast, we see his presidency and the fact that he respected international norms, but he inherited that project and to a large degree continued it. And so what is so alarming should be for the Trump base that is reachable is that Trump campaigned against the further notice wars. And I'm aware of this because I worked as the chief leader in the blue collar labor movement where people felt unseen. And when Trump talked about foreign engagements, never ending wars, that resonated with people.
Yes.
And so now he is actually prosecuting a further notice war on a scale that was unimaginable. And at least, yes, it's true that President Obama engaged in the imperialist project from shooting that young Somali pirate as one of his first acts. But he did try to land the plane with Iran. And he did put some real gains on the table, which from the very beginning, elements within Israel, the Netanyahu government, wanted to dismantle because they never wanted stabilization. They had a Zionist project. And now they have in the president of the United States a perfect foil who's at a very defensive point in his own history and narrative, where each day that passes, the news is getting closer and closer around him in terms of what happened with the Epstein files. And here they call a former president, Bill Clinton, and former Secretary of State, Hillary Clinton, who submit themselves, I think, in an act of public civic mindedness to this cross questioning. And it begged the question, well, why isn't Melania, who has many, many pictures and engaged with them, being called? And so it is, I fear a wag the dog that brings the world to a very dangerous precipice. I don't know if that geopolitical analysis resonates with you.
Listen, there's no doubt. This serves many purposes, and one big purpose is that this will keep the Epstein files off of the air for quite a while. God knows how long, depending on how successful Iran is in retaliating against Oman and Israel, etc. Let me tell you something, and Americans better realize this and realize this quick. What is occurring right now, the type of destabilization that we are looking at, can actually affect us locally rather quickly. Go to the gas pump in a few days and see what happens. Go and see what's going to happen. And we know what our corporatocracy does. They look for any excuse to increase prices on everything. And here we have an excuse. Here's another reason for another method for you to profiteer. Hey, there's the war in Iran now. And as we go to war in Iran, the oil supply lines will be disrupted. Look, we are on dangerous grounds right now.
And so I guess the thing is also, I would say that people should be judicious around traveling right now. And I know that it's very important that we pause and look around. I mean, it is something where also it's no mistake that we saw that there was, I guess, and I don't know if you caught I know you were covering the State of the Union, but there was this news item that just blipped for a bit that the Gang of Eight had a briefing with Rubio.
Yes, they did.
Right, and I don't know if you dug in on that. Did you see much after action reporting?
No, actually, Schumer came out of there completely disappointed as far as what he heard. And it was amazing that, well, I think Schumer is a part of them, but he came out of that meeting, one of the meetings that he had with Rubio, completely disappointed, pale-faced. But look, none of these guys, Bob, have confronted this president as they should. And you have, and I'm talking Democrats and Republicans alike. While Democrats don't have the power, they also have the power of the media. If they wanted to, they could have gone out there screaming, "We better not attack." I mean, they could have done a whole lot. I'm talking all of them, because it's almost like the writing was on the wall. We had enough time to go ahead and start mitigating what the writing was putting out there. And that this happened this morning. Let me tell you what's a sad thing, Bob. Yesterday, when the president was walking across the hall, remember, I think the Qatar from one of the negotiators, I don't remember what country he's from, he flew real quickly to the United States, and he said that the talks were moving along, and next week they're going to be talking about further technical issues. That's what he said. And then, as the president is walking across the lawn, the president says, "Oh, I'm very unhappy with the way the talks are going." It's almost they're just going through the motions of saying, yes, we're trying to negotiate, but they're acting as if we're going to blow the crap out of Iran because we are going to make sure that we topple that government. Here's the other thing that we should be cognizant of, because the United States is setting a precedence that Israel has already set. But Israel is a tiny country that only has power because the United States has been its lapdog for some time now. But here's what's happening. In effect, they attacked the different heads of states, heads of positions in Iran. The precedent that set is every single leading American politician that has influence is now a target. because we have not done what other countries have done. As we've gone to war, for practical purposes, we have protected the heads of states and the leaders. What reason? Because those are the ones that can make the decision to say we will abide, or we will come to some form of agreement. You get rid of the top. I don't know what happens in Iran. Let's say we go ahead and we knock out the head. Let's say we knock out the generals. Who runs Iran? At least we were sort of smart in Venezuela. We did the wrong thing in Venezuela as well, but we made sure and kept the structure in Venezuela so that the country didn't completely fall into chaos. In Iran.
That's right. I would say that we don't know what is going to rise up. And we also don't have really clear reporting on the street protests that happened that were put down. And so that's the other problem here when it comes to moving the country forward, when we don't have intelligence about what's happening. And this, I guess, if you look specifically at the lead up to this was a project that has been decades in the making.
Yes.
And the absolute paralysis and inability of Congress to be able to move or act was the result of their sitting down for years and having no legs.
Yes.
And the fact that they sat in a kind of Faustian bargain with the executive branch to permit further notice wars. I mean, I do remember in an amazing moment of candor where the late Senator McCain observed, I think, in Niger that we had lost some forward deployed Green Berets. And he was honest, and he was known for that, and just said, I didn't know we had troops there in Africa. And so there has been this, and I would say it's linked to the uncoupling that happened around the question of the military and conscription, and this long drift away from Americans having any real skin in the game in terms of draft and in terms of, except for the people high and mighty like Donald Trump who can have a bone spur. But to a large degree, the Vietnam War and the accountability around that came as a consequence because in every zip code in America, for the most part, a generation was pulled into this combat. And their lives, their dreams, their marriages, their careers were interrupted by being called into mortal combat. And that shook the foundations of America. And a generation, my generation, rose up and said, no, this is an unjust war. Once you severed that connection and had a further notice military that was serving just by dint of economic necessity, you created a permanent warrior class. And if you go back and look at the debates that were happening at the time, because this idea of moving to a military that was economically based, without a draft, without conscription, the end of the citizen soldier, if you will. The scholars at the time, Egberto, predicted that you would then have a warrior class that began to operate separate from society. And that's what we have now. And it's metastasized in the form of the MAGA situation, where you saw a certain element, which included some committed civil servants from police and fire, trying to take the January 6th attack and the insurrection. So you actually had a situation where this element, these folks who had their whole raison d'etre based on military operation after military operation, who found the way to resolve problems is through the barrel of a gun, this ethos, this John Wayne ethos, were all basically caught up and empowered to feel that they could seize their government. We look back at January 6th and see the Confederate flag flying in the Rotunda, a place it did not fly during the Civil War. And so it's important to economic, because you're so strong in the economy, to go back that it was Milton Friedman who suggested to Richard Nixon, you have a problem with getting people engaged to make war? Well, make it so that it's not necessary or a part of conscription. Make it an economic function. And so now we're dealing with the further notice wars that came out of what happened on 9/11, and the decision where we went after one country after another, destabilized regimes, set off the largest refugee crisis since the Second World War, And then now find ourselves, if you don't want a refugee crisis, don't bomb the countries where these people live. Is
Right.
that too simplistic?
No, that's so true. But let me tell you what I'd like to do, Bob, because one of the things that we do is we make the same mistakes over and over again when we don't know our history. And our history with Iran doesn't start with Iran building nuclear bombs. Before I go into the exact history of Iran, I want to point out something. Do you think we would attack North Korea? No. And you know why we want to attack North Korea? Because as far as America is concerned, North Korea is a nutcase with the bomb. One of the reasons North Korea really, by all means, created its own bomb. And by the way, North Korea is a sick country. The way it treats its people, it's terrible. All of that is horrendous. However, welcome, Arnie. How you doing?
How am I doing?
I will shut up for a minute just so that Bob can
So Bob, if you listen to the show on Monday morning, you will, because we tape it on Friday. The first thing we talked about was Huckabee asking all the folks at the embassy. And it was because Jamie Rowan, whose sister is in Spain, was talking about the fact that everybody at that conference her sister was at, that's all they were talking about. They're all talking about a war with Iran. Okay, that was from folks in Spain. A group of doctors were meeting, and the conversation was about exactly what happened this morning. Okay, so that's how we begin our show for Monday morning, not knowing how prescient she would be, but how everyone else understood the moment had arrived. Yet again, the Trump administration has apparently used peace talks as a pretext for striking at an adversary, making it pointless for future adversaries to engage in negotiations. I think that statement is so powerful because remember, weren't they meeting next week,
Yes.
Alberto?
Yes, they were meeting next week.
So this is a game. This was a dance. This is a distraction. Why would you ever trust this administration? Peace equals war with Donald Trump. And you even heard him use those terms, Robert. I'm so
go ahead, Egberto. Go ahead. And you were doing a very important thing because we have 20 minutes to catch up at least 2 generations about the history of Iran and the interventions going back to the 50s and Mossadegh and overthrowing a democratic regime. Take it away, brother. Nobody knows it better than you.
Now, let me just say this, folks. Remember, every country acts in its own benefit. The United States does, every country does. Back in 1953, the president of Iran, the prime minister of Iran, his name is Mohammad Mossadegh. Everybody needs to understand the genesis of this thing. Okay, it didn't just start today, yesterday, or whenever. The prime minister of Iran, Mossadegh, after realizing for decades that the United States and Great Britain was pilfering their resources, in other words, the oil from Iran was going over the world under the auspices of Great Britain and the United States, and the people of Iran weren't benefiting from it. Of course, Mossadegh came in. Mossadegh said, well, we'll do what a normal country would do. They nationalized their own resources, which every country does. America's resources, even as we farm it out for all practical purposes, has been nationalized. That said, they decided to create something known as Operation Ajax, and they overthrew Mohammad Mossadegh. And here's the thing. They installed a dictator. What they're attempting to do right now, remember, the future dictator of Iran is residing in the United States right now. And that is one of the ones they aim to put. If the country decides to overthrow the current government, that's what they intend to do. Anyway,
a restoration.
A restoration. So we have the Shah of Iran that was placed into Iran. And that led the way to what occurred in 1979 when the government out of the Shah, not the Shah, but the Ayatollah Khomeini came in and said, we are taking our country back. Again, you don't have to like the Iran regime. You don't need to like any of that. You just have to learn how to respect people's territories and understand that they have control of their own resources. The Ayatollah Khomeini was a direct result of what Great Britain with its I think MI6 and the CIA did back in 1953. 1979 was just the response. If we believe that we can bomb a huge country, I think it's many times the size of Texas, if we can somehow take over that country with a few armadas and Israel, what we don't understand is the world that we live in. Every American at this point in time is in danger. You cannot believe anything that Donald Trump says. You cannot believe anything that Benjamin Netanyahu said. They have put us in mortal danger.
I mean to interrupt you, but
yes.
I'm getting Jesse is forward in Europe, so he's a little ahead of us here. Reuters is reporting major explosions in IAE capital Abu Dhabi.
Yeah.
There we go.
Oh, there we go.
The proliferation of it. And so, right, go ahead.
It's a Middle East war. The prices of oil will go through the roof. Inflation will not be abated. This is not only that we're killing people over there and people are dying from the president of peace. Yes, the president of peace is affecting the murder of people throughout the country.
Exactly.
So, Egberto, give us your minute of wisdom, and then we'll get out of the way for David Rothenberg. We'll reconvene on the other side of David Rothenberg's 2-hour show and bring you updates in between. Go ahead, Egbert.
Donald Trump in that statement has admitted that he committed an impeachable offense. He has taken America to war without having Congress approved it. And if Congress doesn't do its constitutional duty going forward after the president has put every American citizen and its military in danger, we have no Congress. It is time for the people to act. The Congress is the people's Congress. It is time for the people to ensure that their Congress act, and it's time for the Congress to act on the President of the United States going through this impeachable act. Thank you for having this startup, Brother Robert at WBAI.
And so, yes, please stay tuned throughout the Pacifica Network for updates. This has been Bob Henley, Interim General Manager, City Hall Reporter at WBAI. Arnie Arneson, of course, with The Attitude, Monday through Friday. Egberto Willis, Politics Done Right, and one of our lead panelists on We Decide America, The Crossroads. We'll be with you throughout the day with updates. Thanks for turning to us. And thanks to Sean Rhodes, just an amazing engineer, and Jesse Len, forward deployed in Europe. Thank you so much. We'll be back throughout the day.
All of our countries.
All right, I think we're up now. Something happened to the mic. Anyway, that is what, I got a call like 5:30 in the morning or earlier than that saying, hey, they invaded Elizabeth. I shouldn't be unsubscribed from you at all. I'll go ahead and check that out, Elizabeth Raven. That is our professor in Caracas, Venezuela. I'll check that out. Anyway, yeah, folks. So that's what we had out there. Welcome aboard, Asturian Bluebird, my brother, El Señor Bruce Pollard. Paul, welcome aboard. We also have in the house Elizabeth Raven, Profesora de Caracas. We have Beth Murray. Who else is here? San Lugonati. Well, Sang Lugonena. I like that name. Asterian, Diane Joseph, Mike. How you doing, guys? Joe, today we're kind of light with people. Alex Pigo, welcome aboard. Keith Lawrence, welcome aboard. Vegan Cindy, Brenda Godspeed, Norman. And is this Norman Reynolds? I don't know. Let me know if this is Norman Reynolds, my brother from another mother. Okay, let's see who else we got here. 5:30 this coming morning. Eclipse. I didn't know that. All right, and in the other chat we have Paul Fleming from Powder Springs, Georgia. Lee the Bearcat from Austin, Texas. Moss Maniac from Houston. Gene Daigle from Alvin, Texas is in the house. Eric Hayes from Kingwood, Atascocita. We also have El Señor Rutten from Brooklyn, New York. Yvette Avery Harrod from Atlanta, Georgia. Patrick Magner, Houston, Texas. And Joe, of course, from Los Angeles, California. Carl Cox from Riverdale, Georgia. My mind is still working. All right, folks. Thank you for being here. We're kind of light on people today. I don't know what the algorithm is doing I don't know what the algorithm is doing. A lot of people tell me they're not getting notifications, etc., etc., etc. anymore. Anyway, I went on last night and did a piece on Crockett. I cleaned some of it up, shortened it a bit. I'm going to play the first part up and until where I think I went ahead and said, this is why I support Jasmine Crockett. So let's go ahead and play that. And then near where I think I've got enough, I'll cut it off. It's 32 minutes, but I'm not going to play 32 minutes of it at all. Let's go ahead and do that. Ahorita mismo. What I wanted to come on and talk about is the Jasmine Crockett Tallarico race. It is, as far as I'm concerned, it is creating too much of a dissension here in Texas among Democrats, which shouldn't really happen. And what we really have are outside forces, right, that use the same old games of the past. They're trying to bring up they're trying to racialize a race that shouldn't be racialized at all. Both of these candidates are very good candidates, albeit one much more, how should I say, prepared than the other. But is that solely a reason for a vote that you pick the most prepared one? No, it's not. I remember when President Obama was running against Hillary Clinton, there was a switch when I made it to Obama. I was first a Hillary Clinton supporter based on her experience, based on what I thought was electability, etc. Because I didn't honestly think the president, the country was ready for a black president, period. I didn't think that. And as such, I wanted to give maximal support to a Democratic ticket that would win. And when I tell this story all the time, in fact, I wrote a book called, I think it's one called How to Talk to Your Right-Wing Relative Friends and Neighbors. And in that book, what I did is I pointed out at what point I was sure Obama could win. I didn't say would win, but could win. And that was when a canvasser went into a very working class white neighborhood. And the canvasser went to the balcony where a woman was standing, a white woman, and he asked her, who are they voting for? And she turned around and asked her husband. I always have to reference this and say, I don't know why she thought she needed to ask her husband who she was voting for. The canvasser asked her. And she turned to her husband, who was in the back, and said, honey, who are we voting for? And the husband turned around and said, let them know we're voting for the N-word guy. You know what that means? Which one they were? They were voting for the N-word guy, meaning they were voting for Barack Obama. And when I read that story, I don't remember in what article I read it. I turned to my wife and I said, Obama can actually win this thing because people's prejudices, or rather people's financial security and well-being is that the country was at a point where their financial well-being and what overtook their prejudices. And that is where an Obama gets elected in 2008, when this country has still not broken its most definite sin in, that is when I knew he could get elected. And, I turned around and said that. And I tell you what, the country right now is in one of those states. Would Texas elect on a national level, a black woman at this time? It is difficult for a black woman to get elected in any state because she doesn't only have to overcome sexism, she does have to overcome racism as well. And progressives think that is something for the right to be concerned about. And I can tell you, based on personal experiences, that I have found, and hear me very well, because this needs to be understood. I have found the same level of prejudice on the right as I have found on the left. And I want you guys to understand the difference, however. The difference is that on the left, we think we want to do something about it. We tend to be high-minded, and we want to say we are going to do something about it. The problem is we are all reared in America, and America is a racialized society. So we are going to break this thing not on the left and the right, or on the left side and not the right side. We are going to break this thing as a country eventually. It's not going to be on the right or the left because, like I said, living in my own skin, I have seen no difference in the level of prejudice on the right or the left. I live here in Kingwood, Texas. And let me just give a few examples here, and then we'll get into the why I voted for Jasmine. And it has nothing to do with Jasmine being a black woman. Absolutely nothing to do with that. But let me tell you, I travel to several conferences every year, progressive conferences mostly. And every year I go to the Netroots convention. And that is where you find the maximum level of progressives, period. No other conference in this country has that level of progressives there. And I have also been to right-wing events right here in Houston. And right-wingers try to show me so hard that they themselves are not prejudiced or racist or whatever, that I get much better treatment at a right-wing conference than I do at a progressive conference. And I tell you one particular incident that is very important. And I think I pointed that out in my book, Tribulations of an Afro-Latino Caribbean Man. It was during the Black Lives Matter, and we were in, I think we had the conference in Arizona. I think was it Arizona I think it was in Phoenix, that particular Netroots conference. And a friend of mine here in Houston who was a part of Black Lives Matter tapped me on the back and says, Egberto, so they first wanted me to go to the meeting. I couldn't attend the meeting. And then he came up and slapped me on the back and said, hey, stuff is going to go down at Netroots today, and you better have my back. No, you better have our back, is what he said. When I go to Netroots, I'm a radio road journalist, all that kind of stuff. And I said, of course I'll have your back. I don't know what you're doing, but I'll have your back. And when Bernie Sanders came in to give his speech, Bernie Sanders was talking and talking and talking. And not once did Bernie Sanders bring up several of the Black Lives Matter events that were incidents that occur, etc. So Black Lives Matter got a posse together and they marched in. And when they marched in, the whole place kind of we were all at tables and so forth. It was about 3,000 people in that room. And they pretty much took the mic away from Bernie and were asking questions. Say her name. I don't remember the woman in Texas who got killed by the cops. And of course, there was the man in Minnesota whose neck. God, why can't I remember his name right now? And and they're shouting and shouting. But again, regular protest kind of a thing. And I'm standing at a table next to another friend. He was doing George Floyd. Thank you, Natasha. And Breonna Taylor. Thank you, Natasha. And I'm standing at a table and another friend of mine, she's next to me. And she just kind of froze and tapped me and said, Egberto, you would not believe what that person just typed on their text. And this is a progressive forum where we support things like Black Lives Matter and all of that. And this guy sent a text to somebody. And the text said, I've never been so scared in my life. And I'm like, what? She said, look. And that's what the guy texted. And then, yes, Lynette, we're having the show at 7. This is something that I'm just doing offhand about the support for Crockett. But anyway, so after that, I thought that was strange, but we let that go. But then I went outside and I'm doing interviews now, one at a time, interviewing folks, what you thought about what occurred, because Bernie eventually talked, came back and he said, I will do something about it, and et cetera, what Bernie said. I went outside of I left the hall outside doing interviews, what you thought about what happened, what you have to say, what's your position, and asking people what they thought. And these 4 people, 3 guys and a woman, 3 white guys and a white woman. They're all fairly young. The girl was the youngest. I would say she was probably 30 or so. The guys were probably in their early 40s. And I said, what you thought about it? And none of them wanted to talk. And the girl said, I'll talk to you. And I said, great. And then she said, no, then one of the guys looked at her and said, yeah, go talk to him. You be our token white. And I turned around to him and I said, did you really tell her that? And he giggled, right? And I'm like, this is a progressive conference. That's all I told him. And, she's red-faced and the 2 of us walked off. And then I gave her the interview. and she was great. This woman was great. She had the interview came from her heart, and it was great. So after that, Bernie Sanders, that night, we had 3,000 people for the Netroots conference who attended his meeting. But that night at the convention center, we had about 15,000 people down below. And Bernie Sanders by then had included racial justice in his speech. Because, he always talks about economic justice. And while people gave Bernie a hard time about simply economic justice and not doing anything hardly about racial justice, the truth of the matter is, and folks, for any black folk listening right now, my brothers and sisters, whether white or black, I am actually more leaning towards how Bernie Sanders handled it. I really think if we stuck mostly to the economic justice issues, let the other activists worry about the different topics, I think would be fine. But anyhow, the reason I brought that subject up is because what I'm seeing now in the fight or the contest between Jasmine Crockett and James Tallarico. Like I said, two very good candidates, two very competent candidates, but outside forces are racializing a race that shouldn't be racialized. This race should be whether we want somebody that is a fighter in your face or somebody who wants to take a compromising role, a role that is more compromising. That is what we have to decide. And if you are deciding this race not based on you don't think Texas will elect or will elect a black woman, that's the wrong thing to be looking at right now. But that is what Tallarico's handlers, his media folks, or the 501c4s that are putting out ads for him, or the PACs that are putting out ads for him, they are racializing this race by doing things like making Crockett look darker than she is in the ads, like if that should really make a difference. Not only making her, but that tells you where these purported progressives who are working for Tallarico is. It shows you where that purportedly progressive mindset is. They're also doing things like putting into the psyche of Texans that, look, both candidates are good, but if you vote for her, it is what the Republicans want. And then they tell you in these ads that are coming out here, and they're putting these ads in all white areas, right? In areas that mostly are white people, right? They're saying you may like Crockett, but that's who the Republicans want, which means she can't win. It's that double fake. The Republicans are making you believe that they fear her. That they fear Tallarico. If they fear Tallarico, they wouldn't be working so hard to make it seem like they fear Tallarico. Like I said, two good candidates. But Tallarico is like having a neophyte going to Washington who would be up for grabs. Are the progressives going to be able to pull him into the progressive caucus, or the centrists who have failed us, like the Senate leader Chuck Schumer, or not? Again, there are a lot. Let me first let it be here. I just voted on Friday. And the reason I waited until Friday to vote is I was really, and I say this from the depths of my heart, torn between who I was going to vote for, the more experienced candidate, or the candidate that had that was trying to pull in Republicans with overdoing it on his Christianity and the way he talks about it, etc. Right? And then I realized one thing. On Friday, I made this final on Friday. Anybody who thinks, the right wants to come across as the evangelical ones, the Christ-like ones, the ones that are religious, the ones that are the ones that want to do these things, right? That are moral. I'm going to tell you something. If we are very honest here in Texas, we are the same state that elected Donald Trump. No morality, several baby mamas, and all of that. It didn't faze our Christians. We are the people who elected Paxton, who his wife divorced for biblical reason, who He has been caught with several married women who stole and who had to settle a case not to go to court because of the fraud he supports. And they supported him. These are not the people that voted for Paxton and Trump. When they're fed up with these guys, they're not coming to vote for a Democrat. They're staying home. They're either going to bite their tongue and vote for the evil ones, or they are going to stay home. So if we are electing Tallarico or supporting Tallarico to go ahead with the expectation that we can bring in moderates, that's a false assumption, because we have already seen that if we look at the last election, those who came out to vote in Texas and many other red states, the ones who came out to vote, not the totality of the voters. I'm talking about the white women who voted overwhelmingly voted for Trump. So his sexism, his misogynist, and none of that mattered to them. So Tallarico cannot earn those people's vote. So why would we elect Tallarico, assuming that he could get those votes, and not look at what Jasmine Crockett can do to expand the base? And if we take a look at what's happening in Texas right now and who's voting, we see that expansion. We see that one of the counties that had the largest output was her county, Tarrant County. So the elitists in Washington and the elitists in New York who are running these racist ads. And again, like I said, this should not be based on race. This should be based on whether you believe we want to go with a touch of trying to bring these Republicans in to vote for a Democrat, or somebody that says, vote for me because I am going to go into the face of Donald Trump. I'm going to go into the face of those other senators who are not living up to the purported morality they support. I am willing to go ahead and call them out. And you know how you know I'm going to do that? Because you saw me do that where? In Congress you saw me do that in Congress on the bench. And that is exactly what I will do. Marnie says this white woman voted for Trump, voted for Trump, or any Republicans in South Carolina. Would never. Got you. So what I'm saying that we have to do is look at things practically. Like I said, outside sources have been racializing this race. This contest has nothing to do with race. It should have nothing to do with race. And progressives need to remember what we are trying to be. Progressives need to remember who we are trying to be. One, an ideology that is fully inclusive. And for those who came late, who are in here later than normal, and sorry for having this late, I had to think twice before I did this one. It is important that we try to live up to what we say, because, Republicans don't have to say, they can call us out. In fact, they have been doing just that between the Tallarico and Crockett race. They have been down in Crockett by saying, you see, the progressive used you when they needed you. When they wanted an attack dog out there, you were there for them. Look at what they're doing to you now. And that's the message that is being sent out in every single black neighborhood right now, in every single minority neighborhood right now, saying those progressive use you up. And when it is time to really do something for you as a progressive, look at what they do. They uplift the white guy that is much less experienced than you are, that is not a lawyer who can go in there and fight the lawful bid in the Senate. We can't fall for that. So for those who are listening to me tonight, and for those who are who have friends in Texas, if you're not in Texas, I hope that you share this and talk to other people about this. Geometric progression is perfect. In other words, if each of you speak to 10 people about this and let them understand what we're talking about, and you teach each of those 10 people to talk to 10 people, that reaches 1 million rather quickly, very, very quickly. But we have to be critical thinkers here. The reality is the Republicans fear Jasmine because in the rural areas here let me explain what's going on here. in the rural areas here in Texas. Jasmine is going to go into these areas and she's going to be able to say, I am on the agricultural committee. I understand that your plight of the farmers, and this is what happening. And farmers are going to say, oh, okay. And it's not that they're going to go and vote for the black woman overtly, but they either are going to do it for their own financial self-interest, or they're going to stay home if they can't stomach voting for a Democrat. But I tell you what, if they're predisposed to vote for a Republican, they're not voting for Tallarico. And that is what I hope people understand. And it took, I went through all the different permutations before I voted on Friday, because I wanted to be able to say, and I wanted to be specifically able to say I wasn't voting on notoriety. I wasn't voting on race. I was voting on a logical reason based on what I'm seeing. And if we all vote, let me tell you, Leslie Harris, honestly, I don't care who's donating to either one of them right now. And by the way, there's all these things that attacking Tallarico for taking money from Mandelstam, the Jewish multi-billionaire. And then there are folks talking about her taking some money from AIPAC. All of these are indirect money, not directly taken from them. The truth of the matter is that's not what it's all about right now. That's not what it's all about. It's about getting them elected. What I always talk to people about these people. Yes. What I talk about politicians is politicians are empty vessels waiting to be filled. Empty vessels waiting to be filled. So you have to look at other characteristics to decide how and whether you're going to vote for them, right? So I know that Jasmine is a firebrand. I know that she will back down to no one, and that's what I want. I know that she is going to back down to no one. Tallarico, he is still moldable, in my opinion. Leslie says, I like both of them. That's why I'm asking, because that's what's important to me. Yes, the Jewish multi-billionaire gave to some PAC that supports him. And I understand that likewise, there are PACs that support, I think the Jewish PAC that support a PAC that has donated to Jasmine. So anything you hear on TikTok or the other places, they're both through PACs and all these other hidden features, because we have Citizens United still in effect. They're all getting bad money, to put it bluntly. Both of them have a certain degree of bad money they're getting. And that's the reason I completely took that out of the equation, Leslie. I don't want to, I'm not trying to diminish what you're saying, but I'm trying to say that the big money is getting into both of these campaigns through what's called PACs. So when you see these ads that come on TV and say, oh, Jasmine took from AIPAC, or you hear Tallarico took from Mandelson, or whatever his name is, please don't let that influence your vote, because these two candidates are good people. I love the race between in District 18. This one is a House race between Christian Menifee and Al Green. And the reason why I love that race is that these two guys are fighting it on issues. On which one, one is saying, I'm the new generation. The other one is saying, I have seniority. I interviewed both of them, played the interview one after the other on KPFT. I'm just glad I don't have to vote in that race, right? But it's important that and I wish this race was similar, where they fight on just the issues that Jasmine and this other and Tallarico stands for. It seems, Lynette says, it seems that these reps have to spend so much time raising money. Yeah, that when they are out there in Washington, they have to spend time and they have to be ready to give to their big donors. So yeah, to talk to their big donors directly. So anyway, I got to go write my KPFT show, which is at 7 a.m. Central. I mean, say 7 a.m. Eastern, 6 a.m. Central. And I know I'm going to see our beautiful Lynette and Joe and let's see, Marnie. I know you're going to be there tomorrow morning as well. Randall, you need to check us out at 6 in the morning. We are on air then, FM. We're on FM, and we also simulcast it here on Substack. But again, so I think I articulated the reasons why I voted for Jasmine Crockett, and I'm going to say it again for the newcomers, that the Republicans are playing a double switch game here. They want you to believe that they fear Tallarico and that they're pushing Jasmine. It's the double whammy. They fear Jasmine. because Jasmine has a lot of the progressive, I shouldn't say progressive because it's some of the progressives that are giving her heartburn right now. Oh, LBW, I'm sorry that your kid is sick and you got to get up and go to work too. I tell you, the mothers and teachers, man, I tell you, I hope she feels better. Okay, so here we go again, folks. So so that's the reason I'm standing with her. Okay, that is the reason I'm standing with her because it is Jasmine that they fear, and all those. All right, it is Jasmine that they fear, and I really, really mean that Jasmine that they fear. And oh, my brother Patrick, I hear you. I have to disagree with you on that one, Patrick. Let me just say it this way. And again, first of all, let me tell you this. I am not upset with anyone and how they vote. Like and I mean this sincerely from the depths of my heart. Both of these candidates are good. And what I don't like is how it was racialized. And the racialization come across differently based on your own lived experiences. I know that you hear that kind of word in all of the times, but it is true. And there are some of us who can immediately see how it's done, how it is actually done, and how it's made to work. Like let me give a good example. My brother Patrick says that he changed his mind and he says Jasmine is more aligned with Israel and less progressive, in my opinion. The thing about it is we can't. Uh, Talarico is very religious and he comes across with the things that he says about you know but we don't have any experiences with Talarico, but we have experiences with people who have spoken like Talarico and see what the behavior of somebody like Talarico would be in Congress. I would put my money, and this goes for all people. I don't care. Like I said, we live in a racialized society, and that's why race comes into play. And this is what I would tell my brother. Between Jasmine and Talarico, if I'm looking for the things that support poverty, we can call it progressive or whatever we want to call it, right? But if I'm looking for that person who's going to do right by mothers, if I'm going to look at that person who is able to discern that uh, that that black folks, Latinos get different treatments, and as such things need to be mitigated, I would have to go with Jasmine as being more cognizant of those issues. I still think Talarico would have to be made more aware of them. Not that he wouldn't, because I think he would based on the particular issues. Now, the other thing that people have to notice is the controversy, and I notice I'd never brought it up before. And the reason why is, like I said, I don't want to racialize something, but I just want to show you something. Talarico, and by the way, it's just about sure that he did say something to the effect of he didn't know, he thought he had to run against a mediocre black man as opposed to a as somebody with the caliber of Jasmine. And while a lot of people got mad at it, I immediately saw that as the people who are his handlers. That kind of wordiology doesn't come out of somebody who speaks like Talarico. That came from those consultants who told him that. The same ones who are making the commercials that are darkening her skin. The same ones who made the commercials that are saying she can't win because. The ones that are the actual consultants that never met a human being. Those are the words of those people, not Talarico. And again, by him using that, right, that wordiology, and me knowing it's not from his heart, but it is, or likely not from his heart, but it's likely from consultants. It tells me how moldable he probably is until he gets his own footing. You see what I'm saying? So I'm saying you have to look at these things through, in my opinion, And look, a lot of what we're doing here is we're giving our best assertion based on our lived experiences and much more. And I'm saying my lived experience gives me more confidence that somebody who has gone through certain things in this race, in this time where people are being harmed. I know many of you saw the piece I did on the woman who came out and spoke about her hunger. And you had someone in the chat who said, well, get a job. That was their response, the Republican response, of course. Right? So that's where I'm at, Patrick. But look, like I said, voting, we have two good candidates and we come to the conclusions differently. That's one of the reasons I waited to the last day of early voting to vote, because I was torn as to who to vote for. And honestly, I didn't make the commentary of Tallarico influence my vote at all. Because like I said, that's not true. The influence that it had on my vote is that I knew that wasn't in his heart, which meant that when they went ahead and arranged his campaign, this campaigner said, "Oh wow, Tallarico, our campaign wasn't built for her. It was built for the other guy." And that's what I'm talking about. Anyway, we are close to the end of the show, folks, and I want to thank all of you from here. I think I saw our Cheryl Elkins in here. Did I see Cheryl in the house? Yeah, I saw Cheryl, and I am looking to see if she had her link in there so I can put it in the other chat as well. I don't know if I see her link. Yep. Hi, everybody. Sorry I'm late on our bridge right now. All right, you go, girl. If you had a picture, I would throw it up here. Anyway, look, guys, thank you for being here. Love you all, man. Please, those of you who have the wherewithal, please click on that subscribe button and become a paid subscriber if you can. And let's go ahead and do that for me. And likewise, if you are not, go to politicsdoneright.com/newsletter, politicsdoneright.com/newsletter. Love you guys, man. You guys make my day. I mean, one of the reasons, no matter what's going on, I try to make sure and do this, right? I feel that responsibility, and I want you to know that. I feel that responsibility, and more of us have to feel these types of responsibilities because we need to change the country. And no matter how you're going to vote tomorrow, you know what my opinion is, and I try to make my case for those of you here in Texas. Weigh your options. Weigh your options. All right, you can reach me directly. Email me, info@politicsdoneright.com. Love you all. My name is Egberto Willis. This is Politics Done Right. And you guys know how I end this, baby. I am what? Out.
Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Willis. This is a progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, progressive, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. We are an independent media outlet that, unlike mainstream media beholden to corporations, we only owe allegiance to you. Remember, you can also send me a tweet at EGBERTOWILLIES. That is at Egberto Willis. Let us engage. It is Politics Done Right.